Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we are talking about the importance of reading nutrition labels. Why is it important to read the labels? Because taking time to read about the nutrition will enable you to make better choices, eat better ingredients, and just be overall a healthier you. I would say for um, growing up, Kim and I were not raised that way. We just ate
Mhm.
anything and everything that we were in the mood for. We had no idea about nutrition until, later in life when we started experiencing things like, weight issues, hypertension, pre-diabetic, things of that nature. And then we learned that food truly is your medicine and what a huge impact and difference it can make in your life. So, in order to know what you're actually eating and putting into your body, that's why it's so important to, when you see that product making all these promises on the front with their marketing propaganda, which we'll talk about later in the presentation, you be the judge. Don't fall for the marketing tactics. You flip it over, read the nutrition label, and you be the judge as to whether that's something that you need to put into your body or not. Okay. So, moving. Oh, wait, I have to make. Oh, so I'm going to share let me share my presentation. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm ready to just dive in. Okay. So, Kim, can you see the presentation?
I don't know. Yes, I can.
Okay.
I've got
And how
too
does,
many screens going over here, sister.
okay, is there anything blocking the presentation?
No,
Should I
not that
move
I can
us
see.
up here? Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay. So we just covered the importance of reading the labels, and hopefully after this presentation, you're going to be a little wiser and have more knowledge as to the importance behind that and why we should do it. So let me get over here. Okay. So what is actually on the label? Today, we're going to focus on the calories, the serving size, the calories from fat, looking at the sodium, the sugars, and the ingredient list. Now, as far as carbs go, because carbs are listed on the nutrition label as well, but simply choose a whole food plant-based carb over processed foods. And if it's a whole grain, it will contain a good amount of fiber. So that's pretty much all you need to know for that. And if you're eating the right foods every day and the right amount of calories, then you should be satisfying your protein requirement for the day. So we're not really focusing on carbs and protein today, but more on the other things that I mentioned before. So, what actually is a calorie? I have a nutrition label over here that I took from a product. And so we're going to break it down continuously um, on this one nutrition label. So, a calorie is actually how much energy that food supplies to your body. And why is that important to know? Well, it's important to know because overall, if you consume too many calories, meaning you take in more calories than what your body needs for energy, then you will gain weight. But on the other hand, if you are in a calorie deficit, if you do not take in enough calories that your body needs to for energy and just to function, then that will result in a weight loss. So, knowing the amount of calories can be important. And also, if you look at this label, you'll see that there are 15 servings, total servings in this package, and three cookies make up one serving. So, Kim, why do you think, can you tell us why that would be important to know, like the total servings and the serving size?
Well, so it just goes back to what you said earlier about the way we grew up, that we never were taught those that there was a serving size. So I've been very diligent with my grandkids to say, yes, this bag of cookies that I do not want you to eat, but your parents think it's okay. So this is a serving. When it comes to nuts, you think that you can just get the bag of nuts and you can just eat them because they're healthy, but a serving of nuts fits in the palm of your hand. It's small.
Right.
So you have to know those serving sizes. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to eat, this is 3 cookies, a serving is 3 cookies. So if I'm going to go in and I'm going to eat 2 servings, which would be 6 cookies, I have to double all of that that's on that nutrition label. And if we are not, it's really hard to measure what you don't track. So if we're struggling with weight, and when you said, until we started having issues, I think I had had issues from the very beginning. I just never connected it that it was connected to my food. It was the amount
Absolutely.
of food, right? Because when we would go somewhere, I would look for the biggest thing. What's the biggest thing that I can order? And that's what I would order. I never once thought, oh, this is enough servings for, 2 or 3 people, but I'm going to eat it all. So
Right.
anyway, the serving size is very, very important to what we're trying to develop in our new lifestyles.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, I forgot to move the screen on. So anyway, now we're on to right, the fat. So we're going to look at the fat in on the nutrition label, but it can be misleading how it's represented on the nutrition label. But we're going to talk more about that later when we break down the numbers. But that is coming. We will talk about how to properly calculate the amount of fat from calories in a product. But for now, I just want you to know that fats are good for you. Some amount of fat is good, but you want to consume healthy fats such as avocados, nuts, and seeds. But like him said, it's not an unlimited amount. You need to stick to, a proper serving size because they do have fat and they are high in calories. So you want to eat, the proper amount for where you're at in your journey. Because if you overdo it, then it can cause you to gain weight or cause you to not lose weight if you're in a weight loss period. Um, it's also important to avoid bad fats. So we're going to break that down. So on the label, you'll see there's saturated fats. It has 2 grams of saturated fats. Well, saturated fats are found in animal products like meat and dairy, tropical oils, as well as processed foods like baked goods and pastries. Um, Saturated fats can increase your risk of heart disease and stroke and may lead to weight gain. And some
They
examples
actually
of
do lead to weight gain. Sorry, go
um,
ahead.
Um, so I just wanted to give a few examples of saturated fat. So it would be like butter, coconut oil, palm oil, and lard. So once I first became plant-based, I just thought all was great. I didn't realize that, well, yeah, you are plant-based, but you need whole food plant-based. So I would go to Whole Foods, and buy a package of wonderful vegan brownies from their bakery. And they did seem a little oily, but man, were they good.
And they
But
were vegan.
now that I have a little more sense about me, I can look at the label and see, oh, they contain palm oil and coconut oil and all of these things that are not good for me that my body needs. So that without having the knowledge to read that label, I would just be indulging in things like that. On the labels, also trans fats, and these fats are harmful to your health because they offer zero nutritional value for you. So, what they do is they can raise your LDL cholesterol and lower your HDL. And that's the opposite direction in which you want those two things to go. An example of trans fats would be margarine, shortening, baked goods, again, fried foods such as French fries. They're vegan, but they're not good for you. And processed meats, non-dairy creamers can be the worst, and that microwave popcorn. And then just a note on highly processed foods, they often have a lot of extra fat and sodium. So you really want to read the label when it comes to highly processed foods to know exactly what you're eating.
Kelly, can I say something really quickly on the popcorn?
Yes.
We love to eat popcorn, and when I realized how terrible the microwave popcorn was for you, I
Yes.
learned very quickly that you can just get a lunch bag, a brown lunch bag or a white one, and put, a fourth of a cup of kernels in the bottom of that and fold it up tightly and stand it up in your microwave and cook it the same way. And you just have straight up popcorn. And does it taste like the ones that's covered in butter and salt? No, it doesn't. But
Hopefully, no.
that's not serving our purpose of what we're trying to
Right,
do. So we
right.
have to expect things to taste a little different. But that's so simple and so easy, and it's just a great way to get in your popcorn if you really like it.
And you do adjust to it. And
Yes.
I want to watch our time, but I think you and I have both purchased the bowl off Amazon. And what I do is I put, the popcorn kernels in the bottom, and I always add 2 tablespoons of water. And then you can add nutritional yeast or maybe a little bit of salt if you like salt. And then that way it sticks to the popcorn and it adheres to it. And it's a life changer. So that works really well too. So, talking of adding salt to popcorn, let's look at sodium and talk about sodium on the label and why is it important. So, we know that consuming too much sodium can increase your risk of blood pressure and that is a major factor for heart disease. The dietary guidelines for Americans, on average, is to consume no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. And if you have a high blood pressure or a chronic condition, then your doctor may even recommend no more than 1,500 milligrams per day. But that's definitely something that you have to have a one-on-one conversation with your doctor about, like what your limit should be. But just for reference, 1 teaspoon of salt equals 2,300 milligrams of sodium. So that 1 teaspoon equals the recommended daily allowance. And I was just curious. I wanted to do a little research on how much. I mean, to me, a teaspoon of salt seems like a lot, but I wanted to see on average what the average adult consumes on a daily basis. And the average adult consumes approximately 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day.
Mm.
Um, so that's just a tidbit of information that, maybe another reason why you might want to check that and see how much you are actually consuming. And then, so hidden sodium in products, a lot of processed foods contain significant amounts of sodium. Even if they don't taste salty, you need to check the label and identify any hidden sources of sodium. And later in the presentation, we're going to talk about, what you should look for in sodium on a product. But if you look at the label, then that will allow you to compare that to other similar products. So hopefully you can find one that can meet your criteria for what you're looking for as far as sodium. And then we know that people with certain dietary needs, such as if they have kidney disease, they may have to significantly reduce their sodium intake. And I believe, Kim, you were telling me a story of, you were talking to one of these people the other day that, if you have some type of chronic condition, then you may have to significantly lower that. So that's why another reason why it's so important to read the label. Okay, so when it comes to sugar, oh my goodness. Okay, so the next slide, I just had to make a slide of all of the names that sugar can be listed as on an ingredient list. So, because there are just so many that, it's disguised that way. So it doesn't just say sugar. It will have all of these other names and things. So, but important to know when you're reading the ingredient list, what you're looking for is you do not want it to be in the first 3 to 5 ingredients. If it's in the first 3 to 5 ingredients, that means it's probably too high in sugar. So that's something to look out for. So here are all of the names that this sugar can be disguised as. So your basic sugars, and then your solid granulated sugars, your liquid syrup, which contains like honey, agave nectar, but then there's all of these other names too, malt syrup, rice syrup. It could be brown rice syrup, barley malt, and then we have 0 calorie sweeteners. And if you notice, like the 0 calorie, one of them is sucralose, and then but under basic sugar, it's sucrose. So very close. But anyway, those are all names of sugars that you need to be aware of or look out for.
Well, and Kelly, on that really quickly, too, if you'll look, they're getting very creative on these
Hmm.
ingredients lists because now they will include sometimes not only one form of sugar, but they will add in two, three, sometimes four different types of sugar. And in that way, they don't hit as high on the ingredient list, but they're
But they're
sprinkled
getting the
throughout the rest of it.
sweetness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So we're looking at our ingredient list of the nutrition label that we've been using throughout the presentation. And you want to look at the ingredients because you want to know the foods that you're consuming. And so the fewer ingredients listed on here, it indicates that that product is closer to its natural form. But if it has a long list of ingredients and things that you can't pronounce or you do not know what they are, then that's a food that you do not need to be consuming. Um,
Yes.
so if there are, I would recommend if there are things on that list that you are not familiar with or you don't know what they are, then look it up, do some research to just ensure that that ingredient is, falling into your health plan, that you know about the health value of it and the origin of which it came from. Um, this product that we're looking at is not a whole grain product, and that was one of the things that we said at the beginning. If it's whole grain, then you're probably you're okay on that area. But when you're looking at it, also contains a lot of saturated fat. So it has the palm oil, soybean oil, canola oil. Um, and what did we say about sugar? We said we don't want to see it in the first 3 to 5 ingredients. I believe this one is number 4. uh, Sugar, and it is listed as just sugar, but then it's also listed as high fructose corn syrup as well. And then something that we're seeing more and more on our food labels, if you're buying processed foods, they're now required to state that it's a bioengineered food ingredient. It has a bioengineered food ingredient. So I looked at the definition. I already know that that's something that's created in a lab. It's not something that you would find in nature, like what we're trying to do, eat whole food, plant-based items. But I looked it up just to have the uh, correct definition. And it says an ingredient that contains detectable genetic material that has been modified through laboratory techniques. The modification could not be obtained through conventional breeding or found in nature. The food contains some newly introduced DNA. So you be the judge as to that's a product that you want to consume or not. It's not something that I personally want to consume, but I would just be on the lookout for that. And you're going to see that on more highly processed food ingredients, like
Well,
crackers, for example.
crackers, and I want to say that there's a lot of baking powder that has
Oh,
it.
you're
I
right.
believe cornstarch does
Yes,
also. So,
you're right.
we really have to find those alternatives like arrowroot or
Yeah.
tapioca flour or something if you're looking for a thickening agent. We just need to be
Mhm.
careful because when you say the food contains some newly introduced DNA,
Right.
that should be red flags for us. And I am seeing this more and more in the grocery stores.
Right. And I switched to using arrowroot as opposed to cornstarch as a thickener. You just have to be really careful with it because it only takes a small amount. If you overdo it, it makes it really gummy like. So it is, I use it successfully, but it's just those little tweaks. But there are alternatives and you can find healthier, alternatives. You just have to be top of mind about looking at the ingredient list and making those small tweaks. Okay, so what are the recommendations? So you may or may not know about Jeff Novick. He is an awesome guy, and we have followed him for years. He's a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and he works with the McDougall program. And he's very funny, and his presentations are spot on, and they make you laugh. But so here are his recommendations that he teaches at the McDougall program, and I thought it was worth introducing here. So, first of all, he says never believe anything on the front of the package. And what is the front of the product? It is marketing propaganda to get you. It's just their marketing to get you to purchase the product, and you cannot believe what it says on the front because they overinflate the promise of health and they disguise the not so healthy ingredients on the product. So don't rely on the advertising. You have to look at it yourself to determine if the product is healthy or unhealthy based on the facts and the ingredients. So he says the calories from fat in the product should be less than or equal to 20% of the calories. So some products do show the calories from fat, others don't. The label that I chose to use did not, but it's an easy calculation. When you look at the sodium, it should be a one-to-one match. So, however, like I think our product is 160 calories, so you want the sodium to be 160 or below. And always check the ingredients because you want to avoid those bad fats. You want to limit the sugar. They should not be in shouldn't be in the first 3 to 5 ingredients, and you want to choose whole grain. Um,
Now,
okay,
Kelly,
so
just something really quickly on the cholesterol. I know we're not really talking about that, but if it does not have animal products in it, the cholesterol will be zero.
Okay, so here's just a breakdown of what we just covered, really, the facts. So what we're going to do is, and I hope that I can explain this to where it's not too confusing, but I'm going to tell you the video in which I took this information from too. It's one of his, so that you can go and watch it if you want to. But we're going to use his nutrition facts to break down our nutrition label. So, okay. So what he said the guideline was to look at the amount of calories per serving, and then the fat calories could be 20% of the overall calorie for that serving. So that would be 32 calories from fat, okay? Because 160 times 20% is 32. And then the sodium, it needs to be equal to or less than the amount of calories in the serving. So our serving is 160 calories, as you see on the nutrition list. And what we're going to really take a look at too is it's misrepresented kind of by saying when you look at total fat, it says 9%. But how they disguise that is it's not really 9%. We're gonna figure out what the percentage of fat is in that serving. But what they do is they're basically using two different systems in the nutritional label to represent the fat content. So they have a total fat listed in grams, but then that percentage, it's not you think that it's saying, oh, it's 9% fat, but look above the 9%. It's saying the percent of daily value. So let's calculate what the actual percentage is of fat in here and what the calories are from fat. And calories from fat are really easy. All you do is take the total fat, which is 7 grams, and we know that there are 9 calories in every gram of fat. So you just simply multiply 9 times 7, and you would have 63 calories. It's 63 calories from fat. So then let's look at the sodium. It's 130 milligrams. So it has to be a 1-to-1 or less. It actually matches, it actually is okay on the sodium. But the fat, so what we do to get the 39% that makes up the fat content is you take the 63 fat calories and you divide that by the total calories per serving, and then you multiply it 100%, and it's actually 39% fat. So, how is the 39% in comparison to the 9%? A huge difference, right? Because we're led to believe, we think, oh, well, 9% fat, that's not too bad for this product. That's actually kind of low, but it's not actually 9%. It's almost 40% fat. So this is probably an item that you may want to avoid. I hope that's not too confusing. But my main point in doing it was just to show you how manufacturers. Jeff Novak worked for Kraft, so he's an expert and knows how they try to fool the consumer to representing a product to make it look healthier than what it is. So I'm just simply saying you have to delve in a little deeper to know not trust, I guess the old saying, trust but verify. You have to verify what you're seeing. And what we're seeing here, 9% fat, is not representative of the percentage of fat in one serving. One serving actually contains 39% fat. Does that make sense, Kim?
Yes, it does. And I think that that percentage that they're throwing out there, that 9%, I it shouldn't surprise me that that's legal for them to throw that different calculation in there. But that all returns back to it's on us to make sure that what we're doing is what our health goals are and what's best for our situation. And education is never a bad thing. I have really
Right.
much enjoyed this presentation. I think it's really good. And I've watched that Jeff Novick video multiple times just because sometimes I just want to go back and reference it. So I highly recommend that.
So the one that I actually have, watched several of his. He has a few short clipped ones, and then there's a really long one. But I think the health food versus healthy food, how to read labels, is a good one to research on YouTube if you want to get a little more information about it.
It's a great
So
idea.
anyway, do you have anything else to add or anything else to say, Kim?
No, I mean, just again, we have to be responsible for our own health. We can't expect someone else, whether that be a doctor or a family member or whatever. We have to be responsible for what we put in our bodies. And the excuse of, well, I didn't know, is not going to pan out real well when you get sick. So,
Right.
yes,
Because if you think about it, I mean, doctors are trained in, certain fields, but they have 15 minutes or less with you, and
yes,
they don't know you and your daily life and what you're experiencing. I mean, you can't possibly say that in 5 minutes. So
right,
ultimately, it comes down to you to do the research, take their advice, listen to what they say, but do your own research as well.
yes,
And that's why, food truly is medicine and it's healing to our
absolutely.
bodies. I think God has given us everything we need in nature
Mhm.
to, um, food is medicine. So I would just say that's why it's on you and important that you do the research and read the label and know what you're putting in your body.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a good week and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.